You're good. No. You were fine. Okay. No, that is. I've heard it that way. Yeah. Repeat after me or ready begin. That's what I recall. Can we?
Going off track. Come on.
Can we get a roll call, please, Kathleen?
Commissioner Dickerson.
Here.
Commissioner Lopez is absent. Commissioner Mohajer is absent. Commissioner Seifert.
Here.
Chair Blanco.
Here. Okay, moving on to consent calendar, and the only item on there is approval of the minutes from February 18, 2026. Any comments or questions, or do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved. Next item, public comment period. For public comment, speakers may provide public comments on any matter within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes, maximum 15 minutes for public comment. Unless the majority of the commission objects, the chair may provide speakers more or less time to speak. All comments or queries shall be addressed to the commission as a body and not to any specific member thereof, pursuant to Government Code 54954.2A2, the Ralph M. Brown Act. No action or discussion by the commission shall be undertaken on any item not appearing on the posted agenda, except to briefly provide information, ask for clarification, provide direction to staff, or schedule a matter for a future meeting. So with that, do we have any public comments for items not on the agenda? No, doesn't seem like it. Okay. Thank you. Let's move on to the public hearing. Item 5A is adoption of the Santa Maria 2045 general plan, and this is a continued item from February 18, 2026. And project location is citywide. May we hear from staff?
Thank you, Chair Blanco. Staff is very excited to present the final draft of the general plan for your approval tonight. And this marks the end of a long road of 5 to 6 years of effort. And thank you for the role that you have played in that. And this does represent thousands of comments that we received from hundreds of people. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of them for the work that they've put into this plan. From the Planning Commission to the residents to members of the development community, it really has been a team effort. And I'd also like to recognize Dana Eady for all of her contributions to the work. With that, I'll pass it over to her for details about what has changed since the last round of comments.
Thank you. Thanks, Shannon. All right, so we have a brief presentation just to go over the comment letters that we received from the last meeting and some additional changes that we're recommending be made to the plan as a result of those changes or of those letters. So I just have this slide just to reiterate what Shannon was mentioning as far as all the different phases of this project that we have gone through so far. And I went over these in detail in the last meeting, but basically we are now at the review and adopt stage. And so should your commission make a recommendation this evening, that'll be forwarded to the city council for approval of the project. So on February 18th, that's the last meeting that we had, the item was continued to tonight's hearing, and it was continued with direction for staff to address the 5 comment letters that are listed here in this slide. And we have gone through those letters in detail and provided a very detailed staff report that includes every single comment from those letters and a staff response to each of the comments. And so in the next few slides, I'm just going to go through the items that we included in the staff report for recommendations for changes to the different elements of the general plan. So to start, the introduction section, it's very minor change, changing the word implementation to state action, which is consistent with the rest of that section. Moving on to the land use element. So these are the items that we are recommending that we change in the land use element. Some of these I went through at the last meeting that we had in February. Basically, it's just adding a reference to the C2 zone for the community commercial designation, amending actions LU 2.1.1 and 2.1.2 to just remove the County of Santa Barbara from the application process, as the City of Santa Maria would be the lead agency on those applications. Policy LU 5.3, we are recommending to add agricultural to that policy. It's referencing placing single-family housing directly adjacent to a high-intensity commercial, agricultural, and industrial uses. And then on page 13, just including a reference to the sphere of influence within that paragraph. There's a discussion about annexation there. So the conservation and open space element has a few changes. Page 12, there is a discussion regarding the groundwater basin, and we're just removing any reference to that basin being an overdraft. It's currently not an overdraft. It's not projected to be an overdraft, and so that discussion should be removed. Also, action COS 1.3.1, the first bullet there, it mentions mowing in agricultural areas or agricultural buffers, but that really doesn't make sense. So we're removing agricultural from that. And then we're also recommending deleting action COS 2.1.2. And the reason is that that action references land that is zoned for agriculture within the city's SOI, and the city does not have any land that is specifically zoned for agriculture, so it really doesn't make sense to have this action in the general plan. There's a few other changes in the conservation and open space element. The first policy, it's COS 1.2. Again, that's just removing the County of Santa Barbara from that policy. This is really going to be a city-driven effort, and there may still be coordination with the county, but the city is going to be the lead agency working on that project. Action COS 2.2.1, that has been amended to include the protection of plant health within that action. And also, there's a section down below that we're recommending that is deleted from this action, and that's related to pest management and chemical pesticide use. All of the uses of pesticide and the management and regulation of that is handled by the County of Santa Barbara. The city doesn't have jurisdiction over that, and so we felt that it's best to be clear and to delete that. And then finally, a clarification to action COS 5.2.4 that just mentions the buffers need to be between existing uses and new uses. We're recommending that these two actions be deleted. Again, the first action on the slide is related to monitoring pesticide residues, and that's just something that the City of Santa Maria does not regulate, and we don't have a plan to be regulating that. And then action COS 5.2.5 is duplicative. We have a different action that is COS 5.2.4 that addresses buffers and establishing an agricultural buffer type of ordinance in the municipal code in the future. And so having this action is really duplicative, and so we recommend to streamline it and delete this action. Okay, so moving on to the health and environmental justice element, there are some recommendations just to revise the discussion on page 5. It was mentioning pesticide use during agricultural production, and generally, I think it's better to have this discussion just mention pesticides in general, because there are other types of pesticides than just from agricultural production that could result in exposure issues, and so that's the intent of the recommended edits to this policy. And then on page 7, focusing more on just overall the provision of worker housing and not just H-2A housing. That was getting very detailed, and I think it's better to just reference that employers need to provide worker housing if possible, and that there's been a heightened need for increasing the amount of safe and affordable housing in the city for those types of uses. Finally, this policy, HEJ 1.1, we also amended this policy to clarify that the intent is to protect against potential exposure to pollution in general, not just industrial pollution, and that you should avoid citing new sensitive land uses, for example, schools, senior centers, and daycare centers near existing industrial, commercial, and agricultural uses which have the potential to result in exposure due to air pollution, toxic chemicals, and things like that. And there is a focus here on the DACs, which is disadvantaged communities, and the health and environmental justice element is required to take into account disadvantaged communities and have policies and goals that provide additional protections to those areas. And then policy HEJ 1.8, there was a very specific sentence in here related to fertilizer-related impacts and surface stormwater impacts, and so we recommend deleting that and just generally focusing on preservation of water quality, which is really the intent of that policy. Public facilities and services element is very straightforward. It's just adding more information regarding the degrees that are offered at Allen Hancock College in the section that discusses schools. And there's also, we'll also include information on the four-year degree for Hancock. The circulation element, page 10, there's a discussion regarding roundabouts, and we just wanted to add a bit more to the sentence that recognizes that it's important to ensure that they are sited and designed appropriately. And this will also include collaboration with local communities so that they can be involved in the design and the implementation of local roundabouts. Policy CIRC 7.1, we revised that to be more accurate with to reference the reduction targets that are set by the California Air Resources Board for the SBCAG region. And the requirement is that it's looked at on a per resident and a per employee basis. And so we are going to be bringing some updated thresholds for VMT to the commission and council following adoption of this plan, but felt like it was important to add this in so that it's clear where these requirements are coming from. And then on page 5, just accurately noting that there is only one heliport within the city limits, and that's at Marion Hospital. So for the safety element, we recommend deleting the following language that's on page 7 that is very specific to agricultural practices exacerbating local flood issues. There are many things that can exacerbate local flood issues, and so one of the comments was that this was only focusing on one aspect when it really, there's many different possibilities to causing flood issues in the city. So we recommend taking that out. And then policy S 8.2, this policy said that it was a requirement for new development and redevelopment to incorporate climate resilient design to mitigate the impacts of climate change. We recommend revising this policy to say encourage. New development's going to need to comply with California Building Code, with Title 24 requirements, and there's other requirements regarding solar that would meet this policy. So this provides more flexibility in even going above and beyond that should developers wish to do that. Finally, I shared this at the last meeting. I know it's a lot on this one page, but we recommend a change to one of the mitigation measures in the environmental impact report, and it's to clarify that a tier 4 or zero emission type of equipment shall be utilized where feasible. So it's not, tier 3 is what is required and tier 4 can be used if feasible. So that's the only change really in the EIR. And so that's it as far as the changes goes. I just wanted to include this slide that it shows the next steps. So the city council hearing, should this move forward tonight, will be on April 7th. And then if the plan gets adopted, the next steps would be working on the LAFCO applications, looking at specific plans for the annexation areas, and also a comprehensive update to our municipal code. So this is really the beginning of a lot of additional work that our department's going to be doing. And so this slide has the recommendations for this evening. And so there are 3 resolutions, and the first one is recommending that the city council adopt a resolution certifying the final environmental impact report. The second resolution is to recommend that the city council adopt a resolution to adopt the new City of Santa Maria 2045 general plan, replacing the existing plan, and also including the revisions that were presented this evening in this presentation. And then the final resolution is to recommend that the council adopt an ordinance to approve a zoning map amendment that would repeal and reenact the new zoning map. So it's a zoning map that is updated to be consistent with the land use map that's in the land use element of the new general plan. So that concludes my presentation, and we're here for questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Dana and Shannon. With that, do we have any ex parte communication? I know it's been a long process, but maybe recently or since the last meeting?
I did speak with Shannon and Dana about this topic. Thank you.
I have not.
No? Okay, me neither. Okay, with that, do we, well, let's move on to questions of staff. So do we have any questions for staff?
Do you have something? No? I'm trying to locate it. Early on, there was some discussion, 5.3 in LU, in the land use 5.3 earlier. It was discussion of putting things near high capacity industry or agriculture. I can't remember. Is this it? Let's see. New housing secures a single directly adjacent. Okay, so here's my question. At one time, and I'm not sure that there's the appetite for it any longer, but there may at some point come again. There was some discussion about H2A housing in sort of a kind of a big block housing, a sort of development. That kind of came and went as the fear went down. But if it came back, I remember there was some discussion about one out on, was it Blosser, I think, or somewhere around there. Anyway, and so the question I have is, it says here that you would discourage single-family housing productions directly adjacent to, but you would not necessarily discourage that type of housing development if it was adjacent to something that was a high-intensity commercial or agricultural use? Is that, I mean, I'm just trying to understand if that's something like that would be okay or not with that.
Commissioner Dickerson, so definitely a project like that typically would require CEQA review, and those types of things would be reviewed as part of that. It also would depend on the zoning. I think the project you're talking about might have been out in the Area 9 area, Donati maybe, yeah. But that project did not move forward. So you're right, though, this policy is focusing on, it mentions single-family housing. So there is an option to amend this to just say discourage housing and not focus directly on single family. I think it also depends on what type of agricultural or commercial or industrial use it is. The intent of our new general plan is to try to avoid those kinds of conflicts in the future. And so we would need to look at, does the zoning even allow housing there? What is next to it? does there need to be some kind of buffer put in place?
And that's, I guess that was my question, is that if we were trying to create, if somebody was trying to create a housing project that for, and I'm being quite specific here, for like H2A housing to relieve inventory throughout the city by having H2A workers, be closer to where they work, the ag lands just outside the city, would something like that leave the door open for someone to be able to present something like that, or would this somehow hinder that?
I think it would really depend on the location of the project, the location of where this housing would go. It doesn't completely close the door to looking at that as an option in the future, but it's very much location dependent and what's adjacent to it and what's it zoned. And so, there's so many things that go into whether a project is appropriate to go in a location, as you know. So I guess all I can say is this is focused on single family. So if it was a multifamily project and there was a plan development permit submitted, there would be quite a bit of discussion, I think, with staff as to the location they were looking at. Is it in a specific plan area? Is that even allowed? So, but this only mentions single family.
Okay. All right, thank you. That was my one question.
Commissioner Sievert.
Thank you, Chair. So the reason we are having this meeting is because we had some additional information come in last week, and I believe that in my talks with you guys, we've addressed to your satisfaction all of those letters, the legal letter from the grower shippers, Claire's letters, Lori's letters. So in your estimation, we've addressed all of the letters that had come in at that time?
Yes, Commissioner Seifert. So I did forget to mention at the end of my presentation, we did receive 3 additional letters for the meeting tonight that were forwarded to you, and they're on our website. One of them was from the grower shipper. It appears they just have a couple of items that they brought up, but generally I would assume through reading the letter that the majority of the concerns have been addressed. The staff report that we prepared directly addresses all of the comments that were brought up by the attorney who wrote that original letter that you reviewed at the last meeting. And then we received a second letter from Lori Tamura with Urban Planning Concepts with a few additional items, but they are items that were brought up in the prior letter and have been addressed in the staff report. And then there's a third letter from Eric Justison with RM Design Group. And the items that he brought up have also been brought up in the past and addressed through the, some are addressed in the staff report, others have been addressed through the response to comments in the EIR and just the overall responses through the general plan.
Had we heard from him before?
He did respond, yes. So we have met with him on one occasion in the past, and then he did provide comments on the policy frameworks when we went through that phase of the project, when we released the policy frameworks for review. I believe Mr. Justison provided some comments during that phase, and he met with us after the draft general plan was released.
So if this moves forward tonight, do you have any plans on doing any kind of looking into what those items might be and making any changes before you go to council, or is it pretty much sealed as this is what the final is going to be?
I did review the letter before this meeting and looked into what he brought up in detail, and we did not recommend any changes as a result of the comments. And we have discussed the items with him in the past as well, and I did send him an email letting him know that we received the comments and we're moving forward tonight.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Dana, so the question I had back to what Commissioner Dickerson had brought up with LU 5.3, it is specific to single-family housing production. Is there a reason not to just say housing and not have single-family in there? I mean, you brought up the point of like having to go through the process anyways, through CEQA and everything else. But is that potentially a loophole or an issue in the future to single out just single-family?
Chair Blanco, we're just looking through the land use element because I focused on that policy because that was a change we were recommending tonight. But I do want to take a look at the other policies just to confirm if there's one that focuses on other types of housing. If not, I think we can update it to state housing.
There are in other ways, but I'm not seeing
Yeah, you don't see anything.
that type of next to those uses, so I think that does make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, we do think it would make sense to just say discourage housing production. And it says discourage, and it's focused on the high-intensity uses as well.
Okay. That makes sense, housing in general. Okay, great, thank you. I don't have any other questions. I did have a chance to review the responses that staff prepared and had a discussion with Dana also about them, and I feel like we've done a thorough job at looking at those. So if there's no other questions from the commission, let's move to public comment then. And I see that we already went over the letters, I think, that were submitted recently, so that's good. We got all those here. Let's go to the only request to speak slip, and that would be Lori Tamura. Yeah, the usual 3 minutes, yeah.
If possible, may I request a little bit more time? Otherwise, I'm going to talk really fast.
That's fine. Since you're the only speaker, Lori, that sounds fine, yeah.
Thank you.
Let's go with 5 minutes if we can.
Yeah. Thank you. Lori Tamura with Urban Planning Concepts, and I'm here tonight to help move this project forward. I think I almost feel like using this as a white flag. I surrender. I do have some comments that I'd like the Planning Commission to consider and maybe even make a vote on each one of these. The first one is on Las Flores Ranch, 1,700 acres that the city owns and operates with miles and miles of recreational trails. And there is no information in the general plan or map of Las Flores Ranch anywhere in the documents. I know that the Parks Department as well as staff have said it's outside of the city boundary. There's no reason to include it. But this is a general plan for the next 25 years, and it's going to have a landfill on it, and it's going to have other things. It would be nice to at least know where it's located. So I would recommend that the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council that at least one map is included in this document. I also would like to make sure that the Planning Commission take a recommendation to the City Council by a vote that 5 acres per 1,000 is aspirational. In reality, the city has done 2.5 acres per 1,000. Researching other jurisdictions, the County of Santa Barbara's recreation plan is currently stating 5 acres is aspirational. We've only done 2.5 acres. The city of Bealton has that same information in their general plan. So it's not across the board 5 acres. It's 5 acres, but in reality, it's only been 2.5 acres. And that will reflect very, very importantly on developer fees, maintenance fees, acquisition fees, all of those things that will impact future development and affordable housing. We do request that in any reference to complete streets, that private roads are deleted in any of the policies. Projects like Bellacrest, Lavinia, and I could go on the list of other projects that were built. They don't have complete streets with them now. And they're very well designed, very comfortable, but the full design of sidewalks on both sides and bike trails on both sides and landscaping on both sides would eat up a lot of real estate within these homeowners association projects. So I ask that the private reference be deleted. I do again want to stress that floor area ratio, particularly in the commercial designated areas, is a limiting factor for future design of projects. And if nothing else, the CMU and the C2 standards should be deleted. This is an infill general plan. And infill means high density, tall buildings on small lots. And to put this standard in the general plan, I believe will be hamstring future development. One of the last items is the reference to no net loss on biological and resource areas, and that's in the conservation and open space elements. We've had a number of projects over the years that have been sued because of the word no net loss on biological resources or habitat. And you can replace that wording by mitigating biological resources as needed, but to put the word no net loss in there is something that can be used against projects in the future. Those were the ones that I thought were particularly detrimental to future development, and I hope that the Planning Commission could take these items seriously and make a suggested recommendation to the City Council so that we can assure that projects in the future will move smoothly through the process. I would like to extend my appreciation to the city staff. It's been a long slug through the process, and Dana, thank you very much, and the rest of the staff for getting us to this point. I'm available for any questions, and thank you very much for your time, and also thank you for the continuance. We did accomplish some things here with the changes that were brought forward.
Great.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, Lori. Okay. That was all we have for speakers. Dana, can we, since Lori was the only one here speaking today, we did get a follow-up letter from her. Can we go through, and I know we've addressed some of these. I know specifically we addressed some of these comments at the last meeting. I know the parks ratio has come up, several times. I believe we had Rec and Parks here last time addressing that one specifically. Some of these others have also come up. I know the Complete Streets has also come up. But I guess in the interest of addressing some of these, or maybe all of these, just maybe give us a summary of what the staff's stance on them, or what would be basically the response to these comments unofficially, even though we didn't directly address them in the staff report. Maybe a summary would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely, Chair Blanco and Commissioners. So the first item on Las Flores Ranch, do you want a summary of why that's not included? Okay.
Sure.
As from a parks perspective, Las Flores Ranch is located outside of the city limits. It's not included as a public city park for that reason. It's within the unincorporated area of Santa Barbara County. It's also not readily accessible or easily accessible to residents who live in the city, at least from transportation and walking and biking, that sort of thing. So the Rec and Parks Department has said for all of those reasons we don't include it. There also aren't any dedicated playgrounds and things like that there. There are walking trails out there. And the 5 acres per thousand, I know Angela Oslin from Rec and Parks, they were here, she was here at the last meeting. That is a standard that has been adopted by the City Council, and we are moving that forward with this general plan. We don't have any plans to change it. It does give the city something to aim for as far as providing additional parks within the city in the future. And So we were not recommending to lower that to 2.5 per thousand.
And as I recall, Dana, that was also a goal. It wasn't like a minimum or anything like that, if I recall correctly,
Right.
right? Yeah, okay. Sure, go ahead, Commissioner Dickerson.
Yeah, can I ask a question about that one? So Lori brought up the fact that it would impact fees of different kinds. So I guess the question I have is that if it's aspirational, couldn't we craft it in some way that says, look, this is what our aspiration is, but until we reach the 2.5 acre per thousand rate, we're not going to charge people fees for the 2.5 to 5 acre rate. And, you know, if as a community, we get to that point and we start making that strive to the 5, then, okay, the fees start kicking in and we start, you know, squirreling money aside for that sort of thing. But as long as it's just aspirational, it seems like that if there are fees associated with that, with that increase, that we're really charging people for a mirage.
Right. I think we have a few layers at play here. We have this policy that's been set by the city council, and it has been in place for 35 years. So this is nothing new. This is not something we're adding to this general plan. Additionally, separately, but during the same process, our public works team is actually going through an impact fee update. And I want to be careful not to conflate these two things, because the general plan is not the impact fees and the impact fees are not the general plan. There is an entirely separate track of workshops and public outreach that is occurring to develop and massage those impact fees as we speak. And they are actually looking to, I believe the current plan is to take those in May to the council for review. So there will be an additional opportunity. There have been extensive additional opportunities for people to discuss those, to share their input, to help shape those, change those, meet with Public Works on the details of those. So they really are the experts in that field. Additionally, if we were to kind of discourage any fees associated with this, it would continuously remain aspirational and we would continue to be underparked. That is, we have a chicken and egg issue. If we're not going to have any fees or any kind of nexus between what we want to achieve and a funding mechanism for it, we will never come anywhere close to achieving that. I think another important thing to remember as we look at an annexation here is that we could set that up to achieve this goal. So the rough order of magnitude on that with a 900, excuse me, with a 985 acre annexation, just running those back of napkin numbers, you're looking at about 60 acres of parks. And if we were to reduce that, you're looking at 38 acres of parks. So in a community that extensive feedback from the public, consistently both with the general plan and with other items, asks for more parks and trails and open space, staff does recommend maintaining it at the 5 per thousand.
Yeah, and I'm not questioning the number, the aspirational number of the 5 acres as being what we as a community would want and what we as a community have, the city councils throughout the last 30 years have decided. I'm questioning whether we should be asking people to pay for the aspiration when we have 3 decades of not fulfilling the base number of 2.5. I guess that's what I'm trying to say is that, you know, until we at least get to that stage, should we really be asking people to pony up cash for something beyond even the minimum of 2.5? So that's really my question. I think it's wonderful if we have 5 acres per thousand. That's great. I'm just wondering, do we charge people for it when we have not been able to fulfill it in any way, shape, or form?
I think if we continue to not charge people, we'll continue to not meet it. So if our fees don't reflect what we want to achieve, then we will continue to not achieve those things, is my take on it. I don't know if Public Works wants to add anything.
Of course, the retort to that would be, but if we continually charge people for it and we don't provide, I mean, it's a bait and switch. I mean,
I think one of the,
understand what you're
and now we're dancing far into Public Works' territory rather than general plan
my
territory, so I don't
apologies.
want to step on
Yeah.
toes or misspeak here. But my understanding is we have been severely under collecting on impact fees for a number of years, and that's what has triggered the need for an update. And so, do you want to add to that?
Sure. Commissioner Dickerson, So we're going through the process of an AB 1600 fee update. Part of that, so we are looking at the total number of parks, the amount of park land, the amenities on the parks. Currently, I think we're looking at a level service-based approach for this current iteration. We're also looking at the Recreation Parks Department will be doing a parks master plan, identifying where the future parks will be located, so we can actually identify, hey, we want to purchase this parkland, and so we can actually reach those numbers. So if we don't have a policy that says we want 5 acres per 1,000, we don't have direction, we don't have policy from city council, anybody to actually require or have justification for collecting those fees. So my understanding is that Parks Master Plan is coming. So right now we're essentially doing a continuation of current level of service, but this aspiration of we want 5 acres per 1,000, we need justification, we need policy that says city council is directing staff to plan for 5 acres per 1,000.
So it's your recommendation that the wording for the aspirational 5 acres be left in the general plan, but the discussion of fees basically moves over to what you guys are working on, and that's where the fees need to be fiddled with, not in this document.
Yeah, Commissioner, because that'd be my recommendation. If city council, it's their pleasure to say we don't want to charge fees, we need to find some other way to get to 5 acres per 1,000, I think that'd be appropriate.
Okay.
But I think we need to lay the groundwork and inform, says if you want 5 acres per 1,000, this is what it's going to cost, here's how we're going to get there. But without that direction, I think it'd be inappropriate for staff to prepare a study that says otherwise.
Okay, thank you.
I'll add to one comment I've heard as we've talked about fees throughout is projects that are 70% funded don't get built. So that is kind of the thing that Public Works set out to rectify in looking at this impact fee update is how can we make sure that they are 100% funded, but also that we balance that with the needs of the development community. So one of the big changes that they're proposing is that there will be an opportunity for key regional infrastructure projects that have been identified through the impact fee process as key projects. There will be availability for up to 100% reimbursement on those through what they're proposing. So yes, there are changes in the fee structures. There's also key changes to the benefits of the new fee structure they're proposing. And again, I don't want to conflate the general plan update with that because there will be two very separate, although simultaneous opportunities for public input on them. But that is the logic behind it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Oh, no. Commissioner Seifert.
Thank you, Chair. I'm still not quite understanding why we're asking that the complete streets be in the private subdivisions. Can you please explain that again?
Yes, and we may ask Public Works to jump in with this as well. This is something that we've talked throughout. Again, important to understand that we've had hundreds of people giving input to this process that helped shape the document we have today. And so this does reflect staff's best effort to balance all of the needs and all of the input that we have received from residents, from the development community, and so on. And having the amenities that Complete Streets offer is definitely something that our residents ask for. It's actually something that for existing developments that do not have complete streets, we get regular complaints about. Why is there not a safe place for us to walk? There's no sidewalk. There's no trail. I think another really important factor here is I believe there's a perception, looking at the comments on the most recent letter, that it will be that there is a standardized complete street that includes wide travel lanes, bike lanes, sidewalk on both sides, landscape on both sides. That is not the intent here. So there are actually some models that the Public Works team has identified in other cities that actually are cheaper than what we're building today in these existing communities. So the goal of this language is really to kind of open up our minds and have us look at some out-of-the-box thinking. Maybe there's trails that are pervious surface that you're not required to pave, and that's a bike trail, that's a walking trail. So let's look at different ways to provide these amenities that keep people safe and provide the amenities that they want, make great neighborhoods without making these, unattainable for developers. And I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I can definitely tag onto that, Commissioner Seifert. The intent behind Complete Streets does not mean that we want each street to be a freight corridor and a transit corridor, and it needs to have a Class 1 bike facility on it. It would be a burden that would kill any development. That is not the intent. We want a network that accommodates all users, so we need our ag users to be able to get across the city. We need our transit to be able to operate on time, to provide on-time service for
I was
everybody.
actually asking about the private subdivisions rather than the transit through the city.
Get into that. So with a private development, we need accessibility to those locations. So when we're saying we want a complete street for private developments, how are they providing access to those amenities? If it's a, let's use the most recent, like Bellcrest is a low-income senior housing facility. How are they able to walk to the public streets in order to get to bus transit if they're not driving? We need to provide walkable, accessible routes. How do they get there? I don't know, that's kind of the main purpose. So we're not trying to make overly wide streets. I think, Dana, correct me if I'm wrong, the complete streets is a requirement from OPR for inclusion in our general plan. And their guidance is specific that we're not making each street a, one size fits all. It needs to be context sensitive.
When I looked it up online, all I could find is the one size fits all. It might be a good idea to find what you're talking about and put an example of that in there, because I didn't see it. So, and I know we go back to that this isn't a plan, it's a vision, but it just worries me when we have this type of wordage, verbiage, that could lead to an unintended consequence. So I hear you. I've heard you guys many times on the same question. I can hear that we're pretty much done with this conversation, and what I'd like to see is if you could possibly get us some examples of what you're talking about for private subdivisions, and that might be a big help.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Just a real quick comment on the complete streets. I know that when we looked at Blosser Ranch, there were private streets that actually were narrower than what we expected to have, and I think it was really the collector and arterial streets that were more the complete street sections anyways. I think there was a good balance in that project with trails and widths, but there was a trade-off. We provided those, and there was a reduction in the vehicular traffic lanes and stuff like that. So
Yeah, Chair Blanco, I think that's a great example of, you have you have multiple private subdivisions with private streets that don't meet our current roadway section, right? There's not sidewalks on both streets. I think on majority of the single-family proposed developments, there were sidewalks on 70%, 60% of the streets. But they provided the accessibility that gave them access to transit locations, to bus stops, and then to more complete streets, the La Brea and Western, which were wider public roads that had Class 1 type facilities that allowed biking and walking on the same paved surface. So I think that's a kind of a good example of
it's a good example, I think, yeah.
context, designing the roadways for the context. that they're
Balance
intended.
too, yeah, good balance. Okay, thanks for that, Mark. Sorry, Dana, I know we were trying to go through the comments on the letter, but there was, I guess we can go on to 4. Floor area ratios. Can we get a little bit of discussion on that?
Yes, there is a detailed discussion in your staff report. I was going to just let you know what page it's on. Essentially, the government code for general plans requires that a general plan include a methodology for density of development and intensity of development. And so for residential uses, we use land use, dwelling units per acre. But there needs to be a way to look at the intensity for commercial and industrial uses, and that's typically done through floor area ratio.
Sorry,
And-
Dana, are you looking at a particular page on the?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it. I was talking while I was looking.
Okay,
One
sorry.
moment.
I thought maybe you found it.
I want to find it in this report.
Is it, I see something on page 20, oh no, sorry. Page 20? It talked about the Entrada-specific plan.
One moment. I had it.
I think it's page 20.
Sorry, I'm almost there. There were a lot of comments. Well, essentially, okay, I found it. So it's on page 20 of the staff report. And so this references the government code section. It's 65302. And as I was mentioning before, floor area ratio, or FAR, it's a current planning practice that's used in general plans currently. I did confirm that with our consultant, who's working on a number of general plans for other cities right now, and they use FAR to designate the appropriate building intensity for commercial, industrial, and professional office zones. When the general plan, the land use element specifically was being drafted, we looked at examples of the intensity of development for these types of uses in the city and crafted the FARs around that. And so it's needed in there to meet state law. If we take it out, then we have to come up with a different methodology, and I don't recommend that. So we do not recommend making any changes to take FAR out.
Thank you. All right, I think the last item maybe we can go over is the number 5, no net loss versus mitigate wording.
Yes, so that policy is very specific to areas that have been identified as having sensitive habitat it would be through a type of biological impact study, a bio report that would identify that and then require that area to be protected. So again, I don't recommend removing it. There was quite a bit of input from the public about protection of natural resources, and that action is intended to, support that. I have a response to that as well in the staff report. I had it up a few moments ago, and I could let you know what page it's on again. So it is on page 24, and it's the second item at the top of the page. So also, future projects would be subject to the mitigation measures in the final EIR for this general plan, should they want to use this document for CEQA. And there would also be other mitigation developed if they didn't want to use this particular general plan CEQA document and do their own. But basically, it very specifically only applies to areas that have sensitive habitat or a wildlife corridor area. And so that's the reason we didn't recommend any changes to having that included here.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the commission, staff? Okay. Okay, thanks for that, Dana and Shannon. With that, let's bring it back to the commission for any further discussion or any final questions, and then if there's a motion, we'll entertain a motion. And question, Heather, well, there's 3 resolutions. Do we make them separately, or?
Yes, please. We do need to march them down in the order they're in.
Okay, thank you.
Separately.
So, comments or anything else? Motions?
I just want to open up by saying, I appreciate, and everyone has said this, and it sounds perfunctory, but I truly do. I appreciate all the efforts that Lori and everybody else have done, how much effort and staff has put into it, and all of the public that came out and made comments or made comments online through various ways to get us to this point. We take the information in as it comes in, we deal with it, we talk about it, we discuss it to generate the best document we can for our time. 25, 35, 50 years ago, 75 years ago, et cetera, et cetera. Everyone did the best they could, and everything changes once it's codified. That's the nature of evolution of these things, and we just have to do the best we can. And honestly, I think everybody has the input. Everyone has good comments. Not everyone has comments that we agree on, back and forth. That's the nature of this sort of thing. So that being said, I think the document is ready. It's ready to move forward. I'd be happy to make a resolution after other people make comments. As far as the only thing I think that we talked about changing was, wasn't there a word?
Yeah, Commissioner Dickerson, it's to change that land use policy that we discussed to amend it from saying
Housing.
single-family housing to just housing.
Housing. And would that be, where would we slide that? 1, 2, 3? All of them?
It's specifically in, I can bring it up on the screen. So it would be in policy LU-5.3, where it says discourage single-family housing. We would just strike single-family from that.
Okay.
And then there was another change, I believe, that Commissioner Seifert brought up regarding providing more information in the circulation element on complete streets and including examples of that. And so I wanted to mention that as well, if the commission has a consensus to include that as well.
Okay.
Was the idea to include that in the general plan itself as a graphic or exhibit or something, or? I don't.
It could be done a couple of different ways. We could, you could give us direction to update some of the policies to be expanded to include examples of what we would expect a complete street to be. I think that would be fine. The intent is to allow flexibility and a creativity in design for future subdivisions that have private roads. And so I would not want to just put a exhibit in there that everyone has to have almost a cookie cutter expectation. So we could include examples though of what the expectation would be.
Yeah, if I could add to that, I agree. There's a reason why we didn't include the Public Works standard roadway sections in there as they change over time. And, our primary arterial may now be 3 lanes wide, but as we grow and Betteravian needs to go 5, 6 lanes, or however big it needs to get, we don't want to say we're stuck building a 3-lane road and we can't build any bigger or smaller if needed, right? So
I think what's important is that we need to clarify what the expectation for private roads. Probably both private and public, and we can do that.
Okay. And my question was actually, would you include these two things in each of the resolutions, or resolution 1, 2, or 3?
Just 2.
Just 2?
Just resolution 2.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyway, I'm done with my comments. Thank you once again. Appreciate it.
Before you go, Commissioner Seifert, I was just going to say, related to the complete streets thing, I think the only thing would be is that let's not sort of put ourselves in a situation where we have an example and then suddenly that's, scrutinized one way or the other, right? It could be too onerous, and that's not good either, or it could be too limiting, and that's not good either. So I guess I have a little reservation with there's limited graphics in the plan, right? Just so it doesn't pigeonhole the plan into anything in particular. There leaves some flexibility for the plan to evolve a little bit and give some flexibility to all parties, right? What's complete streets today may not be complete streets in 10 years or 15 years. It may be totally different. I think the idea of complete streets is that it's complete for all users. And so leaving that flexibility, I think, makes a lot of sense to me. So while I think an example today would be good, it might not be an appropriate example in 10 years or 15 years or 20 years.
Can we do it with
So
verbiage? Would that be better?
maybe
Rather
verbiage.
than a picture?
perhaps verbiage, I don't know.
I guess as a question, does it need to be in the plan? Does it need to be, and I don't know, I welcome Lori's comments on that. I feel Public Works as a department has worked pretty well in delivering a complete project, complete streets vision.
Right.
There's complete streets requirements in the existing adopted plan, right? And so we're still pushing forward that vision today, and that's, I think, Bellcrest and Blossom Ranch are visions of those, where those are private streets and we're allowing those to move forward. I think they will function well. But I don't want to pigeonhole, like you're saying, pigeonhole us into one, or developers into one type of development. It kind of stifles creativity, which I think.
Heather, go ahead. I think Heather, sorry, Mark. Like Heather's anxious to say
Chair
something.
Blanco, I was thinking maybe we could go back to Commissioner Seifert. I thought when he said it'd be nice to see some examples that perhaps he meant that Mr. Mueller was just going to provide some examples of how complete streets can look to give some comfort to Mr. Seifert. I don't know if Commissioner Seifert meant that he wanted examples in the plan, but maybe we could get more input from him.
Well, I think it's important to make sure that we're not limiting these smaller subdivisions, especially our senior living, into a vision of, because all I could find online was this huge street with the bike lanes, the multi-purpose lanes, the parking lanes, the large lanes, and I didn't see anywhere where I could find a complete street that would suit itself to a smaller, like say a senior subdivision such as a Bellcrest. I have no objection to getting people around, getting the trails, that kind of thing. They've told me recently that we're having problems with pedestrians and seniors on the same street. I know that we've always limited the speed limit to 10 or 15 miles an hour. So I don't know if that, I've never had a problem walking on my street. It's 25 miles an hour. But I do think that when people are in the streets up against cars, I've always had a pet peeve about bicycles, not having their designated lane with cars. That can be a problem. But I would like to see some way that we're not limiting those type of subdivisions to this vision of this complete street that I found. That's the only thing I could find online. I looked for it. So there's got to be a way to have some example or some verbiage saying that we're going to craft these streets to the subdivision that works for the developer and the community in a way that it's not cost prohibitive, but it still meets 80–90% of what we're trying to achieve. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Commissioner Seifert definitely does. I'll go back to the OPR guidelines. It talks about every different type of mode, and it emphasizes we want a multimodal network, and every road has its, well, I mean, it goes over watercourses, and the idea was not that we want a pigeonhole or that we were trying to force public roads to be one certain type of way or the other.
Maybe we, as we were saying, maybe we could do it as verbiage. Maybe we put the word in there, something to the effect, I don't have what the verbiage is for that, but maybe we say that private or public have to contribute to the complete street vision. In other words, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be all-encompassing, but it has to be part of the element that goes into things. So, and I know that opens the door pretty wide for things. I mean, I don't know.
Commissioners, we've been kind of brainstorming over here on the planning side, and Chair Blanco, you've definitely hit the nail on the head as to why we hesitated to include very specific language or very specific pictures. We did not want to pigeonhole those developments. I think that answers to some degree to Commissioner Seifert's as well. I'd like to share what the language says now. So policy in the circ element is complete streets construction. Construct city streets and private streets to be constructed and maintained to the extent feasible in accordance with the street network, bikeway network, and pedestrian priority improvement network diagrams, the active transportation plan, and standards established by the city engineer that should be consistent with accepted standards such as the National Association of City Transportation Officials street design guidelines. And then complete streets and new development. Condition approvals of new development with street improvements and access provisions to the extent feasible that would be necessary to maintain multimodal operating standards and require complete street amenities consistent with the general plan and accepted standards for new public and private streets. So these really were designed to be broad, and that to the extent feasible was designed to give staff that opportunity and the developer that opportunity to say, hey, that doesn't make sense here, let's not do that, or maybe what we can do here is a trail, to really leave that for open box thinking that we can really figure out what works best for each individual development. It is very difficult in a general plan that's designed to look to the next, now I think we're down to 19 years until 2045, but to be a one size fits all for every single project that might happen during the growth during that time. So that is why it is pretty broad. We can dial that in a little bit, but the goal really is to just allow for multimodal transit on the street.
Thank you for that, Shannon. Yeah, I was going to suggest we pull up that section, but that's perfect. I'm glad you read that. In my mind, that really clarifies the intent and what we're trying to do. Stay flexible, but stay design oriented, for the future, so that we can evolve with what the future may bring in infrastructure. So, Commissioner Seifert, I don't know, how do you feel
Thank
about
you,
that
Chair.
language?
Yeah, no, thank you, Dana and Shannon and Frank and Kathleen and Heather and Mark and Lori and everybody else. This has been a very long process. It's a little frustrating to me. It was presented to me as a plan, and I'm a builder, so when I get a plan, I want from A to B, A to Z, whatever. I want to see the whole thing. I want to see it laid out, and I've been told many times that this is a vision, not a plan, and that we have to be careful of pigeonholing things like Commissioner Blanco, Chair Blanco just said. We've tried really hard to listen to public comment, to listen to people like Lori, people like RRM, people like the grower shippers. They are huge stakeholders in this. This city has always come off and said we're business friendly, and in my experience right now, things are so expensive that it's getting almost impossible to afford housing, remodeling, businesses, and I don't want to lose that going forward. We need a document. I mean, this is a state requirement, and I think you guys have done everything you can do to meet those requirements. I really believe that going forward that it's going to be, we are just a recommendation, and I think that we have made every recommendation that we can and try to move this forward and move it forward in a sound fashion. We've all contributed everything that we can contribute to it. We've all tried to make the changes that we can. I believe we've reached the limit of what we can do up here as a appointed commission. I believe now that it's really the purview of the City Council to make these changes or not make these changes accordingly. I think that the Planning Commission has done everything that it can do to present them a document moving forward, that it will be up to them whether they want to modify it or leave it as it is. I think that by watching the YouTubes and the different meetings, they can tell that we've brought up quite a few different items, and we continue to bring them up. The ones that we're thinking that are going to be an issue, and we're not going to make the final decision. We're going to just say, okay, it's ready for them to make that decision. I don't think that a continuation of this meeting would gain us anything. as far as moving the ball forward, as far as any kind of changes. I think it's been stated pretty clearly that the staff, that the Public Works, that the council, everyone is fairly certain that legally, to the extent of the state law, that we've met the requirements that we've needed to meet, because we can't just willy-nilly make decisions or add things to this that do not meet state law. The last thing we want to do is have a lawsuit to the city. It would be devastating to us, and certainly that's not our intent. I'm really hoping that the City Council hears all these different items. We're down to just a few, actually, after many years of doing this, and many, like you said, thousands of input, hundreds of people. I don't see where we're going to change anything at this point. I think that we've created a document moving forward that, ambiguity is something that I really don't like to see. I think that in the past, people tend to grab on what they see in a document, and to the detriment sometimes of business moving forward, cost of living. I don't want to hamstring our community with onerous conditions that are going to just be prohibitive as when we're trying to move forward. We are under law to have, what, 40,000, 50,000 people in the next 40 years. So we have to our arena numbers, we're bound by that. That's the state is making us do that. I just hope that we've made something here that this will last longer than I will, probably. Hope not, but probably. And I just hope that we've done the best that we can to get everybody to agree that this is a decent document. So I still see things in this that I personally would like to change, but I don't see any way that I'm going to make that change. So I don't think a continuation of this particular document is going to help me. And I think the only one that can make any kind of changes at this level is the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Seifert. I think I echo a lot of the remarks, but I do want to definitely thank staff that's been working very hard on this, all staff that's been working really hard on this for the last 5-6 years, and the community. The community's come out, especially our community of shareholders and partners and developers and others. They put a lot of time into it. Lori's, gosh, she's at every meeting that's related to anything to this, so it's impressive to put that much time into it. I've always said the more time we spend on it, I feel like the better product we get. I think it's played out in some of our projects too, where we have continuances. Inevitably, it seems to work out better. So I think time spent is probably making the plan better. Is it a perfect plan? Probably not. But I think I'd rather have an imperfect plan than no plan. Obviously, we don't have a choice to have no plan, but at some point, we've got to move forward and implement a plan. I think about plans all the time as an engineer, so I always feel like I can make it better, but I realize I don't have the luxury to sit around trying to make it better, right? We've got to do something, and I think we're at the point where we've got to do something. And if we confide in the process, then I think it'll produce a good plan. And I think we're at that point that we've vetted it out. We've talked it through. We've looked at it. We've got all the input. We went through a long, arduous process, and I think we're at the point now that we're ready to move forward. So thank you again to staff. Thank you to everybody for participating. It's been long, but we're almost there. So with that, entertain any other comments or a
I have
motion?
another,
Go ahead.
I have
Commissioner
one
Dickerson.
last comment, and with Commissioner Seifert's okay, I'll make a resolution here, but the only comment I'd make regarding the roads, and that is, it's more of just a cautionary comment, and Commissioner Seifert alluded to it, and that is that it's in the eye of the beholder. And when we say the extent feasible, it depends on which end of the spreadsheet you're on, because I have no doubt that over the next few years, Lori will make the argument that whatever project was moved forward is not feasible, and you guys will say, well, it should be, and then that's the rub. That's going to be the difficulty, and so anyway, just beware of that. And with that, after all these years, I would like to make a resolution and recommend that the City Council adopt a resolution certifying the final environmental impact report prepared for the Santa Maria 2045 General Plan update.
Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a recommendation and a second. Can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Dickerson,
Aye.
Commissioner Seifert,
Aye.
Chair Blanco.
Aye.
I have a question about the second resolution. Have we decided to put anything additional in this regarding the, I know we've got the land use 5.3, and were we going to put any type of examples or any additional text or anything regarding complete streets, or are we just putting it out there the way it is?
I believe we,
Just the
I
way it
believe it's
is?
just the language.
Okay. Then, by resolution, I recommend that the City Council adopt a resolution adopting the City of Santa Maria 2045 General Plan, replacing the existing adopted general plan, including the revisions presented on the March 4th, 2026, and the text change for land use 5.3.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second. Can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Dickerson,
Aye.
Commissioner Seifert,
Aye.
Chair Blanco.
Aye.
And finally, by resolution, I recommend that the City Council adopt an ordinance approving a zoning map amendment Z 2026-0001, repealing and reenacting the City of Santa Maria official zoning map.
Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a first and a second. Can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Dickerson,
Aye.
Commissioner Seifert,
Aye.
Chair Blanco.
Aye. Yay.
There we
Thank
go.
you very much. We did it.
There we go.
Good job, everybody. It warrants an applause. Thank you. Thank you, staff. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. All right. With that, I think that was our only hearing item. So let's move on to final regular business here. Oh, that's right. Dana, we have 6A. You mentioned that last meeting, resolution granting permission for Commissioner Mohajir to be absent from meetings. Is any discussion there? Or?
Actually, Chair Blanco, we need to have that at the next meeting on March 18th.
Okay.
We need to notice, there needs to be a bit more of a noticing time for that on the agenda, so we're going to punt that to
Okay.
March 18th.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll punt that to March 18th. So the next item is oral reports by Planning Commission and staff. Do we have any staff reports?
Chair Blanco, Commissioners, just thank you for the great meeting tonight and all your input. It's much appreciated and was a long process, but we're excited to move this on to the City Council. So I just wanted to mention that, and thank you all for all your hard work with the general plan. Also, I sent an email out to all of you with the upcoming hearing items, so you should have that. We do not have a study session tomorrow, so the next time that we are scheduled to meet would be March 18th for a hearing. And I don't have anything else to add tonight, but thank you again.
And so the general plan is scheduled right now for April 7th, right?
Yes, it
Tina?
is.
Yeah,
There's
okay.
nothing on the 19th?
I need to bring up the schedule.
I won't be able to make that meeting. on
I
the
don't
19th.
believe there is. One moment. Yeah, we don't have a study session on the 19th.
Okay, and my schedule may fluctuate. I'll do the best I can to attend, but due to family circumstances, I might have to not be here.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Any reports from commission? Nope, nothing from me. Okay, we're adjourned. Oh, man, did I do that well?